Good morning, everyone. Welcome to StockTraders.net Stock Talk with Ricky and Goose. This is Ricky. Goose is not in right now, but I've got a great episode. Oh, we got an echo going. Sorry, guys. Goose is not in right now, but I've got a great episode. Oh, we got an echo going. Sorry, guys. Goose is not in right now, but I've got it. There we go. That should have fixed that. Guys, can you hear my voice? I want to make sure that everything is coming through crystal clear. Guys, if you're new to the chat, just click. Somebody tell them, yep, there you go. Thank you, Raf. Click up on the live. Is there still an echo right now? Okay, we're going to start, guys. Like I was saying, Goose is out today. I'm going to just be covering three quick names. I think they're great plays we have lined up for you, and I just want to quickly go over the levels that we're looking at on them. Let me get my notes up so I can remember what exactly we needed to cover. MDGL, guys, is the first one, and we can see it's gapping huge. And I know a lot of people tend to stay away from these higher price stocks because for whatever reason, they don't feel like they're going to be as profitable, or they're not as easy to trade, or they don't like the percentage moves these things make. Guys, MDGL is up 50% for a $100 and something stock. There's reasons behind it, and there's reasons that it's on our watch today, and it should be in play. Let's just go over the basics first. It's 14.2 million in the OS. The float's only half that, 7.1 million in the float. They had $38 million cash as the end of March, which was very surprising to me. Usually when you see these stocks with these higher valuations, you typically see much more healthier balance sheets. They do have 144 million in marketable securities though, so that could be ways for them to get cash if they needed it. They burned about $2.8 million last month, or per month, for the last 3 months in the last Q. They only burned about $1.9 million a month all last year, so you can see they're right around $2 million a month every month. So they're not hurting for cash, but they do have $90 million left on an ATM, and they did an offering in December for 1.7 million shares. They raised about $135 million. Now you might be thinking, why do they only have $38 million if they raised $135 million in December? That's because they spent $122 million of it on those short-term investments, the marketable securities. Now, they did do a private placement as well back in June or July last year. It was for $35 million, and it was for Series A convertible shares, preferred shares that convert on a 1-to-1 ratio, and there's about just shy of 2 million of those. They also still have about $100 million left on the shelf that they use to do those offerings, and it expires in 2 months. So oftentimes we see companies like this take advantage of these price moves and use it to get a financing done. I'm not sure if they'll do a raise, but I wouldn't be surprised if they tap that ATM. We'll have to watch the tape and the level 2 and see if it's heavy or not, but we are already over the 52-week highs. I think this thing could get a shove up to 200. With a low float like 7 million shares, this thing's going to move quicker than most people think. And for that reason, if you guys do play this, make sure you play it with appropriate size. You should not be taking 500, 1,000 shares of something like this, thinking that it's going to move like 100+ million float. It's not. This thing is a tiny float. Treat it like $1.80 stock that moves the same way as a 7 million float does when they're those low floaters, because this thing could rip. It could be through 2 in a heartbeat. So we got to know how to play these guys. You got to know how to stay off the front side. You have to know how to manage your risk. And I will talk more about that shortly after I cover the next 2 names. Guys, the next thing we're going to go right into is VKTX. And this one is a sympathy play strictly off of the move MDGL is making. They both have NASH drugs, and NASH was the drug that the phase 2 data on MDGL was for. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong notes here. Let's see. VKTX, 50.1 million, or no, almost 51 million in the OS. Not quite sure why I didn't look up the float on this one. I will check it out in just a minute. They had $36 million at the end of March, $41 million in short-term investments. They burned about $2 million a month last Q, and they only burned about $1.3 million a month last year. They raised $55 million in February from the sale of 11 million shares that they sold at $5 a share. The over allotment on that was fully subscribed for another 1.65 million shares. The underwriters on that were Maxim, Roth, and William Blair. They did an offering in December as well for 5.9 million shares at $250. So a lot of these people that have been buying this offering are sitting pretty, or the last two offerings, right, are sitting really, really pretty, guys. They had 6.7 million warrants at $1.50 remaining. From, I think that there was like 8 or 9 million originally at $1.50 they exercised 1.5 million of those in the last Q, and it was somewhere between February 5th and the end of March because, I mean, just doing the math from the filings. So if you look at the chart, you can see where they were selling those warrants at, and it was up in the $7 range. And then you see where we're at now, and we're up in that $7 range. And they still have 6.7 million of those ones at $150. They also have another million warrants at $1.30, and they exercised about 1 million of those the last quarter, right around the same time period, guys, right in that $7 range. There's also another pharma company, Ligand, I don't even know how to pronounce it, but doesn't matter. They got another million warrants at $1.50. And they are one of the major shareholders of the company. I'm not thinking that they're going to be trying to bail on this short term. They're more in this for the long term. But this is a play that I'm leaning short on, guys. You can see the levels of the resistance. We got the daily high at what, 736, or the 52-week high at 736. I love the chart if it wasn't a bio, and I didn't think that they were going to somehow use this pop as a way to get people out in the profits. But because it is, I'm leaning short on it, guys, and I'm not really caring about this breakout. Any kind of push into 8, I'm going to be watching for lower highs and something to put risk against, guys. It is easy to borrow over at Wedbush. I'm not sure about the rest of the places. And I will come back to you guys with the float on it, but I believe it's going to be somewhere around, it's not a tiny float. I think their largest holder holds around 10 million shares or so. So I think it's probably going to put them around 30 million for the float. Let's move on to the next one, and then I'll come back to that, okay? VTVT. Now, this is a well-known turd, and I always forget how dirty these guys are until I dig on them again because I see them popping. And they are up big, guys. They are at levels that are very interesting. You can see the previous high of that last pop was around 275. That's our first area of interest. I would actually love to see this gap close around 320s, and any push higher is much welcome. 4 would be great. I'm not going to get that hopeful. We will see what happens. It's all about price action, as we've always said, guys. VTVT, the basics on it is 9.7 million Class A shares are outstanding. Now, they have 23 million Class B shares outstanding, but that is almost solely held by insiders. The float should be around 6.7 million of the Class A, which is what you guys will be trading. And they had $6.5 million cash at the end of March. They burn almost $2 million a month. That was just in the last quarter. Last year, they burned almost $4 million a month. So these guys don't have a lot of cash left. Now, the last 8K they filed was for the sale of unregistered securities. And if you go and look at it, you'll see they raised $2.5 million from, I think, like 500,000 shares. And I'm assuming what everybody that's buying this, all the chasers, all the sheep, think is the shares were bought around a little bit over $4 a share. So, like, why not be scooping these up down here? This must be ultra cheap. But the people that bought that are them. It's them selling themselves shares, guys. Don't fall for it. It's all smoke and mirrors. They don't care if this thing goes to $4 because the shares that they're buying are them buying themselves. It's okay for them if this never gets up there. All right, guys. Now, under that same purchase agreement, they still have about 7.5 million shares to sell to themselves. So don't think that that $2.5 million of cash that they just raised by giving it to themselves is somehow going to bail them out of their dire cash needs, okay? So we are playing this one from the short side as well. As you guys know, I typically am heavier on the short side. Goose is a little bit heavier on the long side. We kind of balance each other out. He's not here today, so you get nothing but the dark side. All right, guys. So let me go real fast while I got you on here, and we will find out that float on VKTX. I apologize for not having that on hand. Let's look real quick, and this shouldn't take me too long, guys. Also, somebody was asking in the chat the other day if I could review how to stay off the front side. We talk a lot about staying off the front side of moves. Guys, when stocks trend, they trend with higher highs and higher lows. If you see the stock, and we prefer using the 5-minute chart for intraday, guys, when you see the stock making higher highs and higher lows, then you're on the front side, and you shouldn't be getting short yet. When you see that trend change and you get a lower high, and we're still talking on the 5-minute, okay, and you get that lower high and you get that lower low, then we have some levels to put risk against, and you can use good risk management to define your level of risk, and therefore you can much more easily make sure that you're not taking big losses because you're just jumping on the front side and your stop out spot is just some arbitrary number. All right, guys, I'm looking at the last proxy they did, and it looks like the only two 5% holders or larger, they hold 10 million. And there's about another 2 million held by insiders. And I don't know for sure how many of those, I'm not going to calculate it right now, how many of those are stock options or whatever. But let's just say, for the sake of being quick, that 11 or 12 million shares of the OS is held by insiders and institutions. And that's going to put us at about a 38 million float. Okay. So 38 million on the float for VKTX. It's nothing to worry about. So let's just use this daily chart right here on VTVT. You can see when it's going up, we're making higher highs and higher lows. You don't want to be shorting anywhere in here, okay? But the second we get this lower high and this lower low, now we know that if this is going to continue downwards, that this is our level of risk, because if it does break this prior high, then we are no longer making lower highs. So this is where we risk against. So you can short anywhere in here and have a risk level of, let's say you short at 7, and your risk is 6.7 or 760. That's 70 cents of risk. And I know that sounds like a lot, but this is a day chart, a daily chart, and so it would be a swing position. So you take a smaller position with a wider stop. That's a 70-cent stop. But look, you never get stopped out, guys. And look at the downside move. Okay, so that is how we stay off the front side of moves. And obviously, you can apply any time frame, the same strategy to any time frame. There's no need for you guys to be shorting the front side, especially these parabolic moves. And as you can see on VTVT, guys, we are still on the front side, okay? And if you don't understand how to identify this backside, remember, use this 5-minute chart. We're getting higher highs and we're getting higher lows. You see this uptrend here? Stay off the front side, guys. That's everything for me, guys. I'm gonna get back to the chat. I'm gonna take the opens today. So in about 7 minutes, I'm gonna hop back on live, but I got a few things to prep. One of them being my latte. So make sure you protect your capital, guys. Stay safe out there. Make sure you have a plan. If you don't have a plan, you don't have a trade. Stay safe out there. Let's go out and crush it. Peace.